Welcome back to the Gambling Chef Kitchen. Today we're going to make one of my family's favorite recipes, and that is for apricot bars. These bars have a delicious whole wheat crust, which has kind of a nutty flavor. They have a juicy apricot topping, and they are really delicious and easy to make. I think they're going to become one of your family's favorite traditions too. So let's get started making our apricot bars. This recipe is so easy. I really hope you give it a try because it's also really delicious. And the way it starts is with a very generous cup of dried apricots. So you can see like my cup measures about here. It's actually the other side. And I have this nice and full of apricots. So I'm gonna dump those in a small saucepan. And then I'm just gonna cover them with 2.5 cups of room temperature cold water. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this pan over to the stove and I'm gonna bring it to a boil, and then I'm gonna reduce the heat a little bit, and you wanna have this on a low boil for about 15 minutes. And then you're gonna just shut the heat off and let them cool off. And the reason we're doing this is because, I'm gonna actually pick these up. This is they're soft, but you can't puree these into like a topping. They're not soft enough yet. So we really need to boil them in some water to plump them up so that they're gonna make that delicious apricot mixture for the top of our bars. So after I boil them again for 15 minutes, I'm gonna turn the heat off. I'm gonna let them cool down mostly all of the way. They don't have to be like room temperature cold, but you don't want them to be boiling because they're gonna cook the eggs in the top otherwise. So I will see you when the apricots are done. While the apricots are cooling off, we are gonna make the crust. And it starts off with 1 cup of whole wheat flour that I have here in this bowl. That's really what makes these bars stand out. The apricot part is delicious, but this whole wheat crust, it's like, I don't know, it's so good and nutty and amazing, and you're just gonna have to try it out because it's gonna change your mind about whole wheat flour. To the whole wheat flour, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of white sugar, and I'm going to add 1/8 teaspoon of kosher salt. And then I'm going to do this with my hands. So I'm going to mix these just a little bit. And then I'm going to add in 1 stick, which is 1/2 cup of salted regular butter, believe it or not. I have tried this recipe with unsalted butter, and I did not actually like it as much. And I grew up making this with salted butter. My whole family always has, and I just think it tastes better. So there you go. I mean, you never know. If you are gonna use salted butter, you probably wanna add 1/4 teaspoon of salt instead of 1/8 teaspoon. And I'm just going to mix this by hand. So we're gonna look for a very fine crumble. It's almost like you're making a fruit crisp topping if you've ever done that. If you have a pastry cutter, you can absolutely do this in there. If you have a food processor and you want to use that to do this as well, you can. But I really enjoy this process of getting my hands in whatever it is that I'm making. It just helps me connect with my food, and I love the texture of it. So I'm kind of going in and I'm like squishing the pieces through the flour, squishing the butter pieces. And eventually what that's gonna do is form a really, really nice fine texture that we'll then be able to press into our baking dish. So I'm gonna keep working on this. It's gonna take me probably about 5 more minutes at least. And I'm gonna show you what it looks like when it's all done. All right, it took me about, like I said, 5 minutes or so, but this is the texture you're looking for. It's like a coarse sand almost. And the reason we want to do that again is so that our crust is nicely compacted into the baking dish. And here is our baking dish. This is an 8 by 8 inch pan. You could also do 9 by 9 inch square pan. That is totally acceptable. So I'm just going to dump all of that in there. And then I'm going to kind of slightly level it out with my hands. And then I'm going to show you my favorite trick for pressing down a crust. Oops, it's okay if it goes up on the side. You can just clean that off. I love showing stuff like that. I mean, this is just the stuff that happens in a normal kitchen. So I don't try to pretend like I don't make little or big messes. I make quite large messes sometimes. So I'm actually taking my third of a cup, measuring cup that I use to measure out my sugar for this. And I'm gonna start on the sides and I'm just gonna press down. And this is just a great little trick for making your crust nice and even. Doing it with your hands is totally fine, but it's actually a lot harder and it takes a lot longer because it's harder to make it even. So I'm just going into the middle and I am gonna get my hands in here because I can't, there's no way to do these corners in here with this measuring cup. It's just not shaped that way. So I'm gonna go back in a second and get my fingers in there. But you can see with using the measuring cup, I haven't edited this at all to speed it up and try to, you know, make it quick or seem like I'm doing it faster. It's really fast. So then once I've done that, I'm actually gonna take my knuckles and I'm gonna press, let me see if I can show you what I'm doing better. There we go. I'm gonna kind of press those corners down and the sides. The sides I'll probably get down there with my fingers. You do not need to be this much of a perfectionist. I am such a perfectionist. I do like everything to be perfect. But just to show you, like, start to finish, pressing your crust down, it's like a couple minutes maximum. It's really pretty fast. You know, I've got a lot of practice, but again, it's not, you know, it's not taking me very long to do this. Okay, I think we're pretty good. Make sure my sides are pressed down here. And the oven has been preheating at 350 degrees. And we are gonna bake this for 20 to 25 minutes. My oven runs a little bit cold, so I am going to probably do closer to 25 minutes. Regular ovens, if yours doesn't run cold, then do 20. Anything between 20 and 25 minutes is gonna be just fine. I'm gonna get this baking and I'll see you in just a few minutes. Our crust is out of the oven, which means it's the perfect time to work on the apricot filling. You do not wanna put apricot filling on a hot crust, mostly because the metal pan will actually overcook the outsides a little bit and you'll get a little bit of charring. It's not the end of the world, I've done it, but it's not as nice as if you can just get everything nicely, evenly cooked. So I put our cooled off apricots in the bottom of a food processor bowl and I drained off the liquid. You don't want to put all the liquid in here because then you're going to have a big mushy mess. And the next thing I'm going to add is a cup of loosely packed dark brown sugar. That just means I didn't shove the sugar in here, but it's still, you know, a cup of dark brown sugar. And then I'm going to add a half teaspoon of vanilla, a quarter teaspoon of kosher salt, and I'm gonna get the top on here. I'm going to pulse this now. And the goal is to get this into a nice texture. I grew up as a kid, by the way, we would do this with a pastry cutter. My mom had this old Bakelite pastry cutter and we would chop everything by hand. So if that's the only method you have, go for it. It's totally fine, but this is a lot faster. So you can see that we have a nice texture here. It has a little bit of chunkiness to it, which you want. You don't want it to be like completely smooth. I'm adding 2 whole eggs. Give that a few pulses. And our very last ingredient is actually going to be 1/3 cup of regular all-purpose flour. And that is going to help our mixture to stabilize and cook in the oven. Without it, you wouldn't quite have the same results. And I'm not going to process that very long because it's flour and it's got gluten in it. So I actually almost forgot a very important ingredient, which is a half teaspoon of baking powder. You do need that little bit of leavening in there to help your apricot topping puff up a little bit. So I'm just gonna give that a few pulses and we are good to go. That is what it should look like. And I am going to get my crust. Here's our beautifully baked crust. It's been cooling for a few minutes. It's still warm, which is totally fine. You just don't want it blazing hot. So I am going to dump this out. I don't know if you know of food processors, but there's this thing in the bottom, which is basically like a hollow where this blade fits in. And if you put your finger, I'm trying to show this to you. Let me move this pan out of the way. If you put your finger inside of that hole in the bottom, and when you're tipping the bowl, then the blade here will actually not fall out on you. It holds it in. If you don't know that, that's a little tip for you. Help you keep from making a giant mess, which I have done many, many times. So we're just gonna scoop out that apricot mixture into our crust. Wanted to make sure I scraped all of that delicious apricot filling in here. I have to tell you, out of all the recipes I've made so far, and several of them have been family recipes, this one is by far the most nostalgic. Just the smells, the tastes, I don't know, just everything about it. I think my mom's been making this recipe since I was born, so it's very, very nostalgic for me. So I'm just making a nice smooth top. You can actually also just give this a little tiny jiggle. And now this is going to bake in the oven, the same 350 degree oven, for between 35 and 40 minutes. My oven runs cold, so mine takes about 40, but you're gonna take a little test with a toothpick in the center and make sure that it comes out mostly clean. And I will see you when this is done so I can show you what it looks like. I cannot wait. Okay, the bars just came out of the oven and they are done. I don't need to stick a toothpick in the middle of these because I have made these so many times. But you can see the edges are nicely puffed. And another way you can kind of tell, and don't do this if you're scared of touching hot things, but I'm not. The middle is just set where it's not sticking to my finger. If it's not cooked in the middle, then it will not do that. It'll be a lot stickier. So these are going to, unfortunately, have to cool off completely. This is not a dessert that you want to serve warm. They are definitely best at room temperature. So cool these completely. Then we're gonna cut them into bars, and the next time I see you, we are gonna taste these delicious apricot squares. I cannot wait. All right, here we go. It's the best part, time to taste. You can see if you use a slightly larger 9x9 inch baking pan, then your crust is gonna be a little bit thinner and your topping too. So you can see the proportions, like 1/3 crust, 2/3 topping. I'm gonna take a bite. So good. I want you to see too how it stays together. That's exactly how the texture of this should be. Oh, I have one little crumb. Guess I'll have to eat that too. One more bite. The crust is nutty. The top is tangy and fruity and amazing, and I'll never get tired of this amazing dessert. Thank you, Mom, for, I don't know, having me grow up on these because they're so good. I really hope you try these. As you can see, the recipe is quite easy to do. Please check out all my recipes on thegamblingchef.com and check out my channel, The Gambling Chef, on YouTube. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and I will see you soon.